live. And it is Thursday, so you know what that means.
It's gonna make it work.
It's time to throw it out there. As well as we got a fun subject to go over today. And it has to do with Mexico, more importantly, the Baja 1000 and what it takes to break the bank while racing the most prestigious off-road race in North America.
Well, I don't know about that, but as far as what it takes to break the bank racing the race, all you got to do is race the race.
This is very true.
Definitely going to be breaking anybody's bank for the most part in that one. So today, our Throw It Out There Thursday is going to be centered around some of the logistics and pre-planning when it comes to going to the Baja 1000, specifically this year. Also, in kind of two different directions, what you would do to prep and plan for a pre-run, and also what you would do to prep and plan for the race. It's too many P's. I'm going to lose
a lot of P's.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to stop prepping and planning.
Slow it down with the double P's, Justin. We got Trocaito Edits in the building. What's up, brother? Brian S. Walker. We got Diversified Fab.
What's up,
We got Mr. Sparkles. Rich Fortin, what's going on, dude?
So, preparation for the race. Two different directions. Now, if you're going to go down to the race and you're going to pre-run, maybe the question would be, why would you pre-run? If you guys aren't into this stuff, then you might wonder, well, what's pre-running and why would you do it? Go ahead and say it, man. If it's fun, just say it.
Mike Dubs is back on here. I'm not going to say it, but he said, Chase again. LL, please don't talk money with Chase.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't talk anything with Chase.
This is true.
Yeah.
My lips are sealed.
So, if you're going to go down and race to Baja, then it's a really good idea to pre-run it. The reason why you want to pre-run it, pre-running means pre-running the course. You can go out on the course in advance. Usually SCORE allows you out there about a month in advance on average. If you go to any of the races that are in the States, Best in the Desert, you're probably not going to get a chance to pre-run. They don't allow it, or they have an organized pre-run where everybody has to go slow. So in Baja, it's open season, man. Guys are down there for the whole month, running as hard as they can. In pre-runners usually are a vehicle that is very similar to what you're racing, so that you're able to judge how fast or slow you must go in certain sections, because it's very similar to the car that you're going to race in the race. The idea for pre-running is that you can see where the gotchas are that they may not have marked on the course, and when you get to that in the race and you're doing 80 mile an hour and a left-hand turn around the corner comes up too quick that you're not ready for, and it's a cliff on the outside edge, you know in advance to not blow that corner wide, and you put that in the notes from your pre-run, maybe into the GPS. That way your navigator can tell you before you get there, hey, this is a 30 mile an hour left, not a 50 or 80 mile an hour left, and keeps you from running the car off of a cliff edge and ruining your race.
And you'd say probably one of the only differences between our race car and our pre-runner is my favorite fact, it has doors.
Yeah, I mean, so pre-runners don't have to be as fast as the race car. They can be, in my opinion, they should be about 70 or 80% of your race car pace. Otherwise, pre-running slower than that is useless, because you're going to go a lot slower through big stuff that you may feel that the race car can do, but you don't know that it can do because your speeds are so off. Also, I wouldn't recommend pre-running in a truck if you're going to race a UTV, because the truck's going to run through everything a lot different than a UTV will. It's always a good idea to use something very similar, if not exact, to what you're running in the class. So, pre-running, first thing, you want to run every mile of the course. You want to run every mile of the course, hopefully at pre-run pace, 80% of race pace. And you want to try and run sections multiple times. So a pre-runner typically is built strong, a little bit more stock than a race car. It's got doors because you want to get in and out of the car quick, or you want to get in and out of the car for tacos when you stop, or for a beer break, whatever it works out when you're pre-running. A lot of guys pre-run with a serious hat on, and a lot of guys pre-run with fun hat on. Some guys pre-run with both. So it is fun no matter what, because you actually get to stop and smell the roses when you're on the West Coast by the ocean, as opposed to racing right by and never even see it. So when it comes to pre-running, let's zoom in to this course. So this is a course map for the Baja 1000 this year. If you want to know where this is my crude sketch of the Baja Peninsula just south of California. This whole map is centered around the northern third of the peninsula. This is what's called a loop race. It is not a peninsula run where it starts at the top and ends down in La Paz. Peninsula runs usually are every 4 years with Score, because it's a lot harder, a lot more expensive for teams to do those. This year, it is a loop race, so it starts in Ensenada and runs down the west coast of the peninsula, loops back on itself and crosses over the mountain range, middle of the peninsula, right through Mike's Sky Ranch, ends up heading towards the east side or the Gulf side, down into San Felipe, and runs the San Felipe loop back north of what's called Three Poles. I'll tell you about that later, into some of the dry lake beds. The border to California is right about where my hand is. So the race course is about 60 miles, maybe 50 miles south of the border at this point. This is all dry lake bed. And then it goes over the summit. It might actually be second summit. I'm not sure if we're running the summit or second summit this year. And then back down into the valley before the last mountain range into Ensenada again. So it starts and finishes in Ensenada, making it easier for everybody when it comes to logistics to be able to stay in Ensenada for start and for finish. When you come to this and you're going to pre-run, it's always a good idea to think about things in advance, like where you're going to stay. So where you're going to stay depends on how many miles you're going to run per day on your pre-run. It is pretty aggressive to think that you can run 250 race miles per day on a pre-run. That is no messing around, probably not stopping for much for food, definitely not stopping for beer, to do 250 miles a day. We try to set it up for about a 200 mile a day average, which allows us to run sections of the course 2 or 3 times and kind of see different or faster lines when we're doing that. But 200 miles a day does not account for breaking the car and having to fix it and still be able to make it to your hotel that night. And that stuff happens, and if it does, and you're planning on running a 10 or 12 hour day of pre-running, you're going to start in the dark and you're going to end in the dark. If you break the car, have to fix it, you might end up at the hotel the very next day, or not at all. So you got to do whatever you got to do to make it happen. What we are doing for this race is we're breaking it up into 4 days. We're going to start in Ensenada on our pre-run. This first 30 miles right here, when you see this on the map where it's surrounded in orange, these are either speed zones or highway sections. So you see this is a lot of speed zone and highway for the first 30 miles. And if you can't understand this, first 20 miles this way and coming back, it's the last 20 miles basically. So you head out 20, 30 miles, you cross the highway at Ojos, and this section right here is run a lot. Almost every single year on a loop race, we end up running through this section. Coming back out to the highway, normally the race course blows right over to the coast and runs the coastline, coming back to the highway every once in a while in certain towns, all the way to the south end of the race course. This year, they're kind of skipping this whole coast section and running a lot more highway. This means that it could be one of two things. One, they're just trying to change up the course, which they do every year. 2, it might mean that they didn't get to a cash arrangement with the ranch owners or landowners that the course has to go through. Since they couldn't run through some of this stuff, they would run it on the highway where they don't have to pay anybody for using their land. A lot of those negotiations happen, years in advance. And you never know until the week of the race if all of a sudden the race course has changed because maybe one of the landowners was holding out for more money, and they'll go right around him.
I found that very funny this last year. You asked for money to get in the car before you got in to pay off some ranchers.
Well, we always put a little bit of money in the race car because I've been racing down here for a long time, and in 1 year in a trophy truck we hit a cow. And that cow was a goner. As a matter of fact, half the cow was under the hood on the headers. It smelled like hamburger.
You didn't tell it to move?
That's pretty good, actually. Yeah, so corny, I know. But we hit the cow, and the rancher wasn't too far away, so he came over and wanted to get paid. And he had a lot of family there, and there's no guns in Mexico, but they have some really decorative machetes. And they whip those suckers out of their saddlebags, and these things have got like teeth cut in them and ornaments on them and all kinds of fringe and tassels and bells and whistles, and they were going to use them, so we had to buy our way out of that one. It was about $1,500 for the cow. But after we came to that arrangement, we're out. So it's always a good idea to have some cash in the car because you never know what happens. You can hit some animals, and the family's pretty pissed off. 1 year, actually 2 years ago at the 500, we took a shortcut around a bottleneck and ended up going through a rancher's land, and we had to get out of the car in the race to open up a gate, close the gate behind us and take off. But when we came to the gate that we expected to open, The owner was standing there, and they had parked a car in front of it, and one of the other family members on a horse.
A horse behind
on
you.
the horse, and they had blocked it, and they weren't going to let us go through. And keep in mind, this is during the race, and we're like trying to make this happen. Man, that was some negotiations. 50 bucks didn't happen, 100 bucks didn't happen, but 150 bucks, they opened the gate and we were racing again. So you never know what you're going to run into. You better have a couple bucks on you to make it happen, because I don't think you can drive through those gates. Most of them are chain link, or barbed wire, and it'll end up ruining the car or you for sure.
Robbie Frazier, pesos or dollars, and Seth Quintero's in the building. I would have taken the horse and dipped.
The horse would have been faster in that section, trust me, than the race car, I guarantee it. We always do a combination of dollars and pesos. We do pesos at the gas stations because they always try and rip off another 10% on the conversion rates, especially the deeper you go into Mexico. So we pay with pesos and don't get ripped off. But all of the locals know what dollars are worth. So you pull out a $100 bill, they know exactly how many pesos that's worth. So I wouldn't worry about it. So back to the pre-run. For us, it's all about mileage and how much we're going to get done in a day. We're actually going to skip this first section right here because we've seen it a million times, and we can come back and see that later on in our week. We're going to go right from Ensenada down the highway, and we're going to start our pre-run at race mile 70. So from 70, if we're trying to hit a 200-mile day, then we can get, say, to, we're going to try and make it to 300. And the reason we're going to go that far, a little bit over the 200 number I just mentioned, right? Or is it? Yeah, 70 to 270. So it's 30 miles far. The reason I'm going a little bit further is because we got about 15 miles of highway right here, which doesn't count as far as I'm concerned, as far as pre-run miles. Got about 5 miles of highway here, got about 10 miles of highway here. So in reality, this is about from 70 to 300, it's about 180 or 190 actual off-road miles, and we can probably pull that off. So the first day, from 70 to 300, we're going to stay in Vicente Guerrero. It's a hotel that we always have stayed at. It's got a restaurant in the parking lot. If you look at any of our videos from the 500 last year, this is actually where the tire store across the street burned down the night that we were working on pre-runners. So it's got a little history. But we've already got rooms there, which is hard to get in a lot of these spots because all the racers, book the rooms as soon as the race course comes out. Day number 2, we're going to jump on the course at 300, and we're going to go from 300 up the back way to Mike's Sky Ranch, down the face of Mike's Sky Ranch. This whole section right here, you guys, is really slow, rocky, big rock washes at the base of the climb, where like Jeep rock crawling. Some of the boulders are the size of your car that you're going in and out and around. And once you get out of the lowlands and you get up on the mountains, this is going to go up to about a 5,500 to 6,000 foot elevation up here. And you're going to be in the pine trees. All of this is single track. A lot of it is just surrounded by trees, only as wide as the car. A lot of it then gets up to ridge lines where it's only as wide as the car, and you go off that, you're going to go down cliffs. It's definitely slow. Also, one thing to consider in the race, this is going to be dark. I'm going to get to that when I get to race planning. But we'll end up pulling this whole section and landing down on the main highway roughly right around Valley T, which is Valley de Trinidad. Valley T's got some badass tacos, so we're planning on starting super early in the morning, getting up to Valley T around lunchtime, get tacos, go down the highway, which is, we're not even counting 30 miles as part of our pre-run, jump back on the course at 440. We're going to run up 440 all the way to 500. 500 is actually Zoo Road. Zoo Road's famous for the San Felipe race, big whoops, and also easy access to town because there's an asphalt road right there. We're going to finish our pre-run at 500. So from 300 to 500 is 200 miles, but in reality there's 30 miles of it that's highway, so again another 170 mile off-road day. Jump into San Felipe where we have rooms. We're going to stay there for 2 nights because starting on our 3rd day, we're going to jump back on at race mile 500, and we're going to run the whole south loop. We call this the San Felipe loop. This is actually the same race course as the Baja 500 this year. From here to here, this whole section is Baja 500, which we were winning until I screwed up. So we got a pretty good chance of being fast in this section. We're hoping that we can make up some time. The only difference is this is all going to be at night instead of daylight when we ran the 500. Yes, Chase?
Quintero says, man, Mike's is fun, as well as he wants to know who's driving San Felipe. I believe there's only one man for the job now.
So Seth, you want to jump in? Maybe, but no, I'm gonna run the whole thing. I always Ironman these races, whether I'm slow or fast. It's my fault either way. I can't blame anybody else.
Diversified Fab says no pre-running on a dirt bike for more than 8 seconds. As well as he says,
that's a chaseism.
He says, watch out for that rock, Justin.
So the rock that Diversified is talking about is right here. Zoo coming back. It is right there past that arrow. I know exactly where the rock is that took out our last race. Like literally the race mile. Trust me, it's already put in my mind and in the GPS. We're not going to hit that one.
I'm pretty sure Justin's going to go out there before the race. And
I might dig it up on the pre-run, actually. I might go out there and just excavate that sucker.
We've been talking about this rock a little bit.
I know. So we'll run the whole southern loop. This is Mateos Wash, which is also huge rocks and big rock crawling. As we get up to the East Coast, this is all going to be whoops that San Felipe is known for. From here to here, that's about 2 solid hours of nothing but pain. That is 3-4 foot whoops, as little as 2 footers, big round sand whoops. You can barely get on top, and when you do, they hurt. And for 2 hours, they really, really hurt. That's what everybody talks about when they say everything breaks in San Felipe. So we'll end up running all the way up to 680, maybe even to 700 for that day. Come back and stay in San Felipe, back at our hotel. Wake up for the 4th day, hop on the highway, start again at say 700, 720, and we're going to run the last section from 720 to about 900, which again is 180 miles plus a little bit of highway. But this section is hard pack whoops through the mountains, then you get into a little bit of dry lake bed, then hard pack again, then sandy, silty lake bed, a lot of lake bed right here to here, floored for the most part. As soon as you come down out of 800, down is the wrong way to describe this. You start actually going up in elevation, you start climbing this mountain. Now, we're going to end up crossing the summit. I just don't know if it's summit or if it's second summit. I haven't looked into it that hard. There's actually 2. But all of this section right here is, near 45-degree vertical climb, hard pack rock, goat trail stuff. It's going to be 15, 20 mile an hour max. And some of the turns coming up here are so sharp, a 2-seat Razor is going to make a 3-point turn. So it's actually pretty tough to do. On the way down, again, big elevation. On the way down, you go through some high desert pine trees and drop into the plains, cross the highway, and then go to the south side of the highway. This section right here is run a lot, and it's a lot of fun. You got some graded sections, wide race course where you can pass people, jump back on the course here at Ojos, and then run the first 30 miles backwards into the finish line. That is our plan for the pre-run. What we actually need to know starting one of these is where we're going to stay, which is mileage per day. Get our RINs in advance. What do we have for fuel mileage? And when we're pre-running, we got a lot of cars with stock fuel cells, which means 80, 90 miles is about max for a turbo car on stock fuel. So we try to have a truck in place about every 70 to 80 miles. So if you actually look at the course and we start at 75, then we're going to want to have something. Probably can't make it to 160. That's going to be a stretch. We'll probably pick up a little bit of fuel a little earlier than that with a chase truck here, and then I'll hop all the way down to 200, get chase truck fuel again, do this lower loop, maybe get fuel a 3rd time, and then finally finish up for 4. 4 fuels on a pre-run is pretty normal on a 1-day deal. Race car is different. Race car can go 150 to 180 miles on a tank, so we have a completely different fuel strategy. Do you guys have any questions about pre-running stuff?
A couple for which GPS do you plan to run? Do you like to run? What's your favorite?
So GPS, we run a Lawrence, any number of models, but we prefer at least a 7-inch screen, maybe as much as a 10-inch screen. The 5-inch screens are too small to read when you're going fast and bouncing around. They're good for pre-running, but they're bad for racing. We do not use lead nav. The reason that we use lead nav on the pre-run so we can see a lot of the vegetation and possible ways and get arounds. We don't use lead nav in the race. Its refresh rate is not fast enough and it won't keep up with the car. So you have a 90 left coming, well, you've already passed it when the lead nav has told you it's coming. So we stay away from that.
Peter Quaid wants to know how much of the race or pre-run is done in low range?
None. There is no low range on any Baja course I've ever been on. It is more carry the speed. Even if you're doing 15 or 20 mile an hour on goat trail, uphill rocky stuff, you are going fast enough to keep it in high. You don't have to have it in low. We've never dropped it in low in Mexico. What else you got?
How many times do you fill up in the 1000? We touched about that briefly with the pre-run during the race.
So our race car gets pretty good mileage, and we actually will change our fuel strategy in the middle of the race depending on the mileage that we're getting. So the first fuel, we'll check what our mileage is. The second fuel, we'll double check what that mileage is. If the mileage is high and we can lose a fuel stop, we will. But typically, we try not to stretch the car any further than 160 miles per fuel stop. So if you go run that backwards, that means you're probably going to fuel 3 times. Because you're going to start full, we're going to end up making it to 160, right? So then you're going to fill up here, and from 160, that's going to get you to 320. We probably, where there's no real access in this section on the course, so since we can't get access to 320, we'll probably fuel again at 300. So that is our second fuel, right, Mitch? Yep. Second fuel. So from 300, that means we can go to 460. Well, 460 is right about here. We would probably stretch that over to 470 and get fuel on the highway. And from 470, that's going to get us to 640, right? 630, my math in my head. So from here, we're going to get all the way down to 630. Well, 620 is actually right next to the highway. So we're going to take an easy pit at 620. That's 3 fuels. 620 plus another 160 miles is going to go 880. And that actually is the finish this year. This map is a little bit old, and they've shortened some mileage off of this course. And the whole course this year is not 930 miles. It's actually 880 miles. So technically, we could fuel at 620 and we could make it all the way back to the start finish. We will not chance that. We will probably splash at the first highway crossing just to make sure we've got 1 tank extra or 1 dump can extra to account for bad fuel mileage. So that's 4 refuelings and a splash to get us through this race. We've done it on 3 before when it has a lot more highway or a lot more, say, flat lake bed kind of stuff where you're not going super slow and you can get good mileage. So hopefully that helps you there.
Seth Quintero and I are going to have to start calling you Robert Downey Jr., Justin, because you are the real-life Iron Man. Much respect.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate that. Now, let's change everything over to race strategy. So back over here at pre-run, the things that we consider is how far we can go on fuel and making sure that we have the trucks to actually supply us fuel if there's not going to be a gas station or a road crossing that we can get fuel at. The other one is food. Are we packing it? Are we going to stop someplace for fuel? We might actually make our fuel stops coincide with where fuel is, and that would determine where we're stopping in different places on our pre-run. Trucks. Mainly, we want to have trucks to fuel us in different places if we can't get it at a gas station, plus trucks with spare parts and trailers. In case we have a problem with a car, we need to fix it, we can stop at a truck with the parts, fix it, and get back on our pre-run. That's typically what we think about. A little bit different when you get into the race. In the race, we're actually looking at what our fuel is. We're looking at trucks because we want to know how many we need to accomplish what we need. And I'll go over how that can change. You might think that, one truck can do 2 full stops, another truck does 2 more, but it doesn't account for where that truck is and can it get to you in time. The last one is time. So how fast are we going to run this race course? And depending on the time, where do we need to be? So where does the chase truck need to be? Where does the chase team need to set up the pit in advance with lights to illuminate the pit because we know it's going to be a nighttime pit? These things are all considered in the time factor. So if you don't have any more questions on anything, then I'm going to start in the race stuff.
We have one more very important question. Where can somebody get a fancy map like this, Justin?
All you got to do is download the PDF off of the SCORE website, and then go ahead to your favorite printer. Borrow the work ink. That's probably at $2 an ink.
ScoreInternational.com.
Yeah, Score-International.
So Scout Racing 3 wants to know what's the cost to do just the pre-run roughly.
10 grand is cheap to do a pre-run. It also depends on whether you're going to be doing a pre-run with you and 1 more car. I would never recommend doing it by yourself. In case you break, you need to have somebody tow you out, help you, whatever it is. But if you do 2 vehicles, the fuel isn't very much. Figure $1,000. Figure fuel to get there and back, trucks and trailers, another $1,000. If you don't break cars, then there's no cost. Hotel rooms are cheap, $200 a room per night on the low side. So there's $400 a night, 3 nights, $1,200. There's $3,200. I'm going on the cheap side. So let's say you just went down there and back and all you did was that and it was 2 of you, you could probably do it for $5,000. If you go down there with 10 friends and you're gonna stay a little longer, it's gonna be $10,000 for sure. Race. So consider that our race car can go 160 miles roughly, or a little longer, a little less on a fuel run. So our race strategy will start with a starting time in Ensenada. So we think that our starting time off the line is about 11 o'clock in the morning, and that's an hour and a half after the trophy trucks start. So if we have an 11 o'clock start time, we already know just by doing the mileage and looking at previous 1000s that the race speed average in this race hovers around 40 miles an hour. Some of them have been as slow as 38 miles an hour. Some have been as fast as 43 or 44 miles an hour. Figure 40, 41 miles an hour, and it gets dark by 6 o'clock. So that means that at about race mile 260 to 280, we're out of daylight. At this point right here, it's going to be dark. So we know that this pit that we've set up for 160, when the car comes down to get fueled first time, this pit's also going to do 300, that they need to set up with lights and be ready for the car when it's dark. This one chase truck can do this pit and this pit. Once we leave, we're going to the other side of the peninsula, and the only way for this chase truck to get here is on this highway back to Ensenada and all the way around the mountain. There is no shortcut across here. There is actually a bypass road, but it's dirt. It's not always open. It's sometimes washed out, and then you have to share it with the locals. It takes a long time to run that bypass road, so you got to go around. This is every bit of 4 or 5 hours to get over here. So this chase truck cannot get to the race course by the time the race car gets here. So that means you better have a second chase truck. And that second chase truck needs to be on the other side of the peninsula before you start the race, or sometime shortly after. So when the race car leaves 300 and heads up through Mike's, you better have a chase truck already over on this side of the peninsula ready to go while this first one is making its way back. You get fuel. We're going to get fuel somewhere around 440. That chase truck is then going to go down through San Felipe and catch us at 620. So that chase truck does 2 fuels. We take off. That chase truck goes all the way up to 760 and fuels us here again, making sure, and this is another reason why you pre-run, making sure the chase truck can get here before the race start car does. Sometimes a chase truck with traffic is slower on the highway than the race car is through the course. The pre-run will tell us that. We can do a time study and know. I happen to know, yes, the truck can get there because I've done that section many times. So that means that chase truck 2 can fuel us 3 times. When chase 2 is done fueling us here, it cannot get down the highway and over here fast enough to catch the car. That's when we're waiting for chase 1 to come up and sit here and wait for us while we get our fuel and do this lower loop. And the first truck is actually going to be splashing us at our last fuel. By the time this is done and we run this lower section, this truck can probably make it back to chase 1 and 2, and both trucks come into the finish line together so that the team can celebrate with us when we win.
Hey man, we got Zolothra. Why does Chase have so many trucks? You know, I'm just a nice guy like that, and I trust Justin that much.
Chase 1, 2, 3, all those chase trucks? Yes, good job.
Robbie Frazier wants to know, how many of your team members join you for the race?
Well, as many as possible. I mean, we have 2 chase trucks for this race, and we try to have 3 to 4 guys per truck, so that right there is 8, plus the 2 of us that are in the car, so 10 total. This year we have at least that, and we're actually going to have a 3rd truck following along those chase trucks with another 3 guys in it that wanted to come. So on the skeleton crew for this race, it would be 6 people. On the big side, we're going to have 10. So there you go.
So then Scout Racing has 2 more questions here. What's the most common thing to break during this type of race? And do you have to be invited, or is it open entry?
Score is always open entry. You know why? Because they're going to take anyone's money. The entry fee for Score in a pro class is $3,200 to $4,000 by the time you pay all the fees and licenses and everything, so it's not cheap. And they'll take anybody as long as your car is legal. The things that typically break, I mean, it's anything in a race car. I'll tell you, in pre-runners, you're going to break axles, you're going to break steering boxes, front diffs, You're going to break sway bar links and possibly ball joints. Those are, or lower arms if you bend them on a hole. That's typically your stuff in a pre-run. Race cars have all those parts much stronger. So race cars, axle, clutch, shock, tie rod from hitting a rock, blowing wheels and tires off of it from hitting big stuff too fast. That's typical stuff in a race car you're going to break.
Desert Society asked, do you change tires?
We only change tires when we get flats. That's about it. So last 1,000, we didn't get one flat. Last 500, we didn't get one flat. 500 before that, got 2 flats. So yeah, we have to get out sometimes and do that. It would be nice if you never got out of the seat, but that's pretty rare. We got that.
Kurt Jenks wants to know if you use a fire suppression system in the race car or just a couple fire extinguishers.
We use a couple fire extinguishers. The rules require 2 or a fire suppression. Not for really any reason. I do like fire suppression systems. If they were lighter than 2 fire extinguishers, we'd probably run that. And we will consider that on the next car, which we're in the middle of building. By the way, Seth Quintero selling his car. Good luck. If you guys want a fast race car, buy that and enter it in the 1,000.
Great job on his new build, by the way. That XP Pro is looking nice.
Z Lothra, method bead grip or bead locks for pre-running?
As much as you can get. I mean, bead grip, bead lock. We run a lot of tire pressure in our race car, more than most people and more than anybody pre-running. I mean, typically pre-run guys are like 14 to 18 PSI, like a play car. Personally, it's not enough air pressure and you can blow up wheels when you hit a rock and squish the tire into the wheel, blows the wheel up. So more air pressure saves the wheel. If you're running 22 pounds and up of pressure, then the only benefit to a bead lock is if you do get it flat, you can drive it on the tire for a long time. So we run bead locks on everything, so I would suggest that. For a pre-runner, do whatever you want. You're going to change the tire anyway if you get it flat.
Lots of love, Scout Racing. Good luck, boys. Nick said I will be watching and cheering you on. Robbie Frazier, you guys rock. Appreciate all the videos. Good luck down there.
Thank you, everybody.
And I'm going to be in every time you pass by the road, number 3.
Number 3. Okay, we'll look for you, man. We'll sign the horn on if we see you. Maybe we'll just sign the horn on every road crossing that way, just in case. We don't want to be like a kind of a jerk and didn't say hi. But
smile and wave.
Yeah, bye. Matt, you got anything?
Just good lucks from like Fernando at KMS. Says good luck out there.
Thank you, Fernando, for your help the other day. Still testing. Appreciate your help.
Jimmy Rasmussen said good luck in the race when you guys go. Overton Pratt said put some goat cheese on your tacos.
Oh, goat cheese is the shit. It really is. It's just, that's a given, I think. I was going to tell everybody where to go for good tacos, but then I thought it'd be a better idea not to tell anyone, so it was just for us.
There you go.
We don't want those places that busy. This pre-run, we're going to meet up with Larry Ragland, who's a good friend of mine, in Valley T, and he's going to jump in with our pre-run for the last 2 days, because he's going to end up driving in the Legends class in a trophy truck, and his section is San Felipe, so we're going to do that together.
JR Cuva SV, how many tacos per chase truck do you pack in San Mateos for race mile 410?
Ooh, that's a really good question, actually. I think the guys would fill their bellies with 4 to 6 each, and then they would probably bring 4 more each, and that would cover them from around this area, okay? That lower loop, they could even get a refill again in San Felipe. There's 2 taco joints in there that are amazing. You know what else? This is probably going to be, I would say 4 in the morning, maybe 3 in the morning. So at this time, there's 2 places that are open for breakfast. So they might be getting breakfast on the way through San Felipe. You never know.
Nick Vandermark wants to know who can eat more tacos, you or Jeff?
That's no question, Jeff.
Okay, I'll run with that.
Jeff is the taco master. I don't think anybody gets more excited about tacos than Jeff. I'm pretty sure if you were to ask Jeff what's more important, gas or tacos, he would simply reply, tacos.
Tacos. Because with tacos, you can make your own gas. So think about it that way.
Mike Tubbs has a great point. Christ, I can't imagine the smell of those chase trucks after eating that many tacos.
We have a couple nicknames for a few things in the chase trucks. One thing is a chase truck ribeye. Anyone like to take a guess what a chase truck ribeye is? That's Jack Links.
Oh God.
Yeah, or Slim Jim.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see what else is there. I got a few more that probably are not good for this speed.
We have a whole Baja encyclopedia we might
We do, actually. We nicknamed, I don't know if you guys ever seen the book Schniglets. We nicknamed our words for things that don't exist or shitlets. So I'll share that sometime in the future.
Rich Fortin actually has a good question. Do the locals support the race and pre-running, or do they see it as a nuisance?
The locals love it. They pretty much take the day off, like the whole week off. It's like a national holiday. Some of the ranchers that are looking for more money may shut the gate, but nobody else does. Everybody else loves it.
As long as you stay off their horse property and you have stickers.
Everybody loves stickers no matter what. Stickers will get you through horse property. If you show up and there's kids standing next to that gate, I guarantee you they're opening it for stickers, no matter who you are.
Now, Justin, what's kind of crazy to think about all this is kind of a lenient 1,000. What would be the difference between a peninsula run and this 1,000? We're already consumed in having to think out this much. How much more goes into a peninsula run?
So difference is this is a loop, starts and finishes in Ensenada. It stays up in the top third of the peninsula. On a peninsula race, we'll start in Ensenada and it'll work its way to both sides of the coast, some of the middle, over to Bay of LA, back over to Guerrero Negro, to finish in La Paz. Usually it bounces through Laredo and ends up in La Paz. Okay, that is not only long, but I mean it's probably the same mileage as what we're running here. The problem is it gets really sparse as you start crossing the midpoint of the peninsula when it comes to rooms, food, people, parts, and even civilization, period. So when you're down there, you better have everything you need. There's no real help with all that stuff. Second, it takes, if you're doing a 4-day pre-run like we are, say 200 miles a day, imagine this. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. Now, if you don't drive your cars back, it is 2 solid days of driving just to get back to Ensenada. So pre-running this is a week. That is a 6 to 7 day job. Then you turn around and then you race it. And in order to have chase trucks far enough ahead of you to do pitting, the chase trucks leave a day early. They have a day to drive just to get midpoint. Some trucks have 2 days to drive. So you've just done a full week of pre-running, and now you're going to race the race, which is a whole nother week because you're starting a day or two early. You're racing the race, which is 24 hours minimum. And you got 2 days to drive back, and you haven't even made it back to your bed in your house yet. You're just back to Ensenada. So a peninsula run, minimum 2 weeks, minimum twice the money, a lot more effort, and there's a lot less sleep amongst all chase guys when they're running a peninsula race versus a loop. So that's why they do it once every 4 years, because it's a big undertaking. If you could win a peninsula run, that is more prestigious than winning a loop race, but any 1,000 or 500 wins amazing.
So let's take bets. Is Jeff going to take a nap on the ride this year?
Oh, I know. He didn't the other year, so I don't, he doesn't have a history of that. My brother does. We've talked about it, but other than that, I'm going to say no. He probably won't.
With all that being said, everything goes according to plan. On race day, what time are we leaving the line? What time are we finishing? And this is crazy, Justin. We go from doing 200 miles a day to doing this whole thing in 24 hours.
Yes, so you answered your own question. We're off the line at 11 o'clock, and we're going to finish between 22 and 23 hours, depending on the average for the race. We'll know what the average is after we pre-run, but you can figure that we'll probably finish between 9 and 10 o'clock the next morning.
Hashtag no chase.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, they started off today with that.
Yeah,
like,
he did. I mean,
like it was like the first
so
5 posts.
I know for sure that he's looking through both of these phones, and he is not listening to a damn thing I'm saying. So I think if I'm talking about this, I could just go, Chase is a dick, and then we end up over here at this pit, and the guys fuel us before we go to the last spot, and Chase has had his pants down, and then over here, we're going to do one more spot. This is a really rough spot. As a matter of fact, this is where Chase dropped his pants, tucked his nuts, and actually gave B.J. Baldwin the goat. Yeah. So all of these things, I bet you don't even listen to, huh, Chase?
Never, Justin told you not to take this road cutting across here, and I will second that. Never take that road.
The bypass road's a bitch. That's a fact.
It's like that's not Florida over there.
Don't ever ride a motorcycle in San Felipe.
And Chase has experience over here too. Actually, 8 minutes of experience riding a motorcycle there. It only took him 8 minutes to launch himself off the bike into a rock and almost lose a leg.
Mike Dubs, hashtag Chaseism should win stickers.
Also the one with the best Chaseism.
Hashtag trade chase for tacos.
I like that one.
Yeah.
A good question from Jake Sonner. Do you guys pre-run in full race gear or more relaxed?
More relaxed. We have extra fire extinguishers in the cars and our pre-runner so that we can run around in t-shirts and shorts if we want to. But we do wear full helmet gear, full neck restraints, and that sort of thing. So I guess we're not as safe as normal, but we're also not driving that fast, and we don't, have. I'll stop right there.
It's gonna be warm there.
No, Baja 1000. It's gonna be cold. It will probably be on the west coast, high of 70 degrees, low of 50. When you're in the car driving down south, if this was at nighttime, that'll get down to the 40s on this side. When you hop over the mountain, it gets a lot colder in the middle right here. And up at elevation, this will probably be freezing. At about Mike's, it'll probably be 38 to 40 degrees, somewhere in that range. When you get over to San Felipe, it'll warm up, but it's still nighttime, so that 40-degree temp will probably be 45 to 55 degrees throughout this whole section. And as the sun starts coming up right on this lake bed and coming over the summit, this is warm, but as soon as you drop off into this valley, it's going to get cold again. And with the sun coming up, this is probably going to be in the 50s or 60s when we finish the race in the morning. So that's your temperature. That's your weather report for the race.
Weather report, love it.
Yes.
It is pretty crazy once you go through the whole course. Talk about the environment change and all the change in all the terrain.
I actually did that when you weren't paying attention earlier in the video, Chase.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Nick wants
I'll
to
tell
know
you this though after Nick. Go ahead.
how he can pre-run with you guys. He says he knows the area.
I'm sorry, Nick. It's a very, very select few. We do not let more people in. We probably already have too many cars. When we start throwing, 6 or 8 cars in the group, then you end up with more breakage and more people behind, and you don't end up pre-running all the mileage, and that is our goal. We want to see everything. We don't want to stop.
Jacob Williams wants to know, where's the daycare that you drop Chase off at?
Good one. I like that one because Chase gets sick in a car, by the way.
This is very true.
Yeah. But I'll give you, how about this? Terrain. This is from memory. 0 to 30. Flat, graded, fast. Everybody's fighting it out and driving too fast. Cross at Ojos. This turns into more trail, desert trail, brush, dropping into G-outs, more whoops. And then as you get into about 50, this is going to have some deep valleys with trees that are grown over your head, and you're driving through trees in the shade. In the 60-mile area is ridgeline, highway. Then you've got west coast is going to be ridgeline and graded roads. Then highway again. Then over to the coast again. This is going to be ridgeline, up canyons, down canyons. Some of it graded, some of it not. A lot of whoops. Highway back to the coast. There's going to be 2 or 3 restaurants right along the coast we might stop at for lunch. All the coastline stuff is fast and fun. Back to the highway, back to the coast. This section right here has got some estuary mud, which kind of doubles as hard packed sand depending on the tide. So sometimes people get stuck here. Back to the highway, down underneath a couple of bridges. This now turns into really rough, hard pack, ridgeline, and valleys. This is going to have a lot of rocks in it, a lot of flat tires, a lot of arms getting ripped off. That continues up to 280 and 300. End up on top of a big, 1,000-foot mountain and come back down to the, roughly a big wash at the beach at 300. From 300 to 340 is going to be washes and big boulders till you get into the high mountain elevations where it turns into ridgeline roads. Ridgeline to Mike's. Out of Mike's is going to be switchbacks with very little passing all the way down to Valley T. Valley T, highway at 440. Now it gets fun and fast. This turns into San Felipe stuff where it's fast whoops, back and forth, right, left stuff that's 40, 50 miles an hour, and pretty much you're going to run it as fast as you possibly can see, or as far as you can see at night. This whole section to 500 is not too rough. When you get back on from 500 to 520, there's going to be some San Felipe whoops in there. From 520 to 540, 540 to 560, high-speed uphill washes. A lot of this stuff would overheat cars normally. 560 is very rough canyon into sandy whoops to 580. 580, 600, you got Mateos washing here, which is slow, big boulders and rock crawling. Then you get out to check 3. From check 3 all the way to 680, massive whoops that suck. I mean, stuff that people will get out of the car and not get back in the car because they're sick of them. 680 to 730, a lot harder rock, and you're going to be dodging rocks at high speed, 50 mile an hour, 60 mile an hour stuff. into 740 and into sandy terrain, sandy, loose, almost silty lake bed stuff. Again, lake bed to 780. Then at 800, it gets really rough and whooped out as it goes uphill into goat trail, rocky single track. Down from the summit is actually fairly quick, about 5 miles of roughness, and then it gets fast all the way to the highway. So 860 to say 900 to the highway again is fast and fun. And then the same 30 miles that was graded on you when you left the start, you run backwards into the finish. So I have not pre-run this race, and yet I know all that. You have to do it a couple times to be able to remember that stuff. But trust me, when stuff's big and it's going to wreck you, you're committed to memory. That's for sure. You guys got any questions before we get out of here?
Yeah, one more from Robbie Frazier. How hot does your race car get inside? My Turbo S gets super hot. Just wondering what the race car is like compared to a stock car.
It is a lot colder because you guys have a radiator and cooling lines, radiator in front of the car and cooling lines running up through the center console. That radiated heat is what you're getting in your car. All of ours is behind us, and so we have nothing in front to develop heat other than shocks, and they don't get hot enough to worry about it. So it's a lot colder.
We had Chris Toggle pick up the line there. I don't think he knew that he did, so he already crossed out.
Right.
But with
Bye,
that
Chris.
being said,
Let's get out of here, Chase. Let's walk over and see what the guys are doing. Hey, you guys, thanks for signing in to our feed today to go over what it takes to prepare to go down and pre-run and race the Baja 1000. I haven't even talked about food and money and all the hotels that you're going to need to be in during the race. I just went over the easy stuff like pre-running, fuel, a little bit of beer, and how much time that takes. So if you guys have more questions, then put them in this feed and we will answer them for you. Thanks for signing in. If you'd like to buy some parts, go to our website, shocktherapist.com. If you have questions, then call the guys up front. Talk to all of them. They're super knowledgeable. They will answer your questions on anything you've got. That's 623-217-4959. Take it easy. Have a good weekend.
You're